Hello and good morning. It is Friday the 30th of April. I say this every week, but I'm still surprised at how quick this year is going. It could be that I'm busy or I'm having fun or whichever. But actually it's amazing how time flies. I saw on the news this morning that I think it's 2/3 now of UK adults have had the COVID vaccine, which is good. Restaurants are open as long as you eat outdoors. Cafes are open. I have my Friday morning coffee. And what I try and do every week is do a bit of a live stream. I have a business course which is called the Roadmap MBA, and basically it's all about teaching real-world business skills to people who have careers or they're entrepreneurs themselves. Generally, it's aimed at smaller businesses, and the reason why I kind of choose that niche is that in most smaller businesses, but actually this is true in businesses of any size, basically you have people are often asked to do multiple different parts of their job. It could be to write a strategy, it could be to get involved with marketing or sales to customers or whichever, even manage a team. So one of the things I was very keen to do, because there's not many places that you can actually go to learn these kind of skills, at least in one place, was both write the book, but actually come up with what I thought was the best in class way to kind of work with people and bounce ideas off and answer questions and stuff. And one of the big USPs that I really kind of looked to do when I spoke to the market was that even if you give people all the information, they love to see someone work out in terms of like a classroom. So every Tuesday we do these classroom sessions now, which anyone is free to join. They're done via Zoom, and every Friday morning, but as more of a live stream kind of format. People sending questions throughout the week to questions@roadmapmba.com. And basically I pick out a few and I'll talk them through. And the idea is it's a way to make business education accessible, but to actually talk about different things that you might not be able to learn anywhere else, or you just want to pick my brains to help sense check your stuff. I appreciate the comment. So what I do on LinkedIn is that please get involved with the comments. I'd love to know who you are, where you're from, and kind of how your week has been. Thank you for saying you have no idea what you're seeing, but it's cool. I appreciate that. What I do, and hopefully I try to explain it, is to do a bit of a live stream. I do this from my office in the northeast of England, and we walk through different concepts and different things. If it's of interest, great. If it's not, no problem. And then likewise, if you ever miss any of these on YouTube, if you Google Steve Pugh Roadmap MBA, it should hopefully come up as well. So in today's session, we're going to cover a few different things. I'm going to talk about my own kind of progress and stuff in the week, just to kind of tell you what I'm doing. And the three main topics we've got, the first one is actually, it's how do you make different decisions when you've got multiple options to choose from. So I know quite a few entrepreneurs that they've got a burning desire to start a business, but actually they've got a few options on the table, and how do you decide which to do, or do you get a job? That's the kind of important thing. So I'm going to kind of break that down, and it's things to kind of consider. Thanks to everyone in the comments, I appreciate it. The second topic that I'm going to go on to, and I'm going to draw these out on the board, is that when you look to grow a business, most people only ever focus on sales. But I'm going to almost explain why it's important to both focus on sales and operations, because you can sell all the stuff in the world, but likewise, if you can't turn it around quick enough and get it out the door, you're going to struggle. But actually, if you get a very slick operational setup, you can actually use that as a competitive advantage to increase sales. So I'm going to touch on that one. And then last but not least, I'm going to jump on to why it's important to invest in yourself. And that's in terms of your personal brand and that kind of thing. And next week from Tuesday in the Roadmap MBA kind of classroom sessions, we're going to start talking about personal branding and all the different things that are involved and why you should almost be aware of it. And actually why that can then help your business or career. So I'm going to touch on that probably last. I'm going to jump into the first one. But no, cool, please get involved with the comments. Apologies, I can't see who you are, which might mean that we're not connected, but that's cool. But we'll catch up afterwards. And you can see what I can see. So as people comment, it comes up on the screen here. To me, it just says LinkedIn user, but if you're kind enough to put your name in, I'll give you a shout out as well. Cool. So yeah, so please get involved. You can write your name in the comments. I'd love to know where you're from. And also because, my background is kind of sales and stuff as well, I never judge people if you throw in a cheeky sales plug as well. I don't mind. It's, it is what it is, but it's part of the hustle and the grind. If you've got your own business or you've got your own thing, use every opportunity you've got, as long as you do it tastefully, to help get the word out and promote your business and stuff as well. So I'm never going to judge you negatively if you do that, unless you go over the top. Cheers, Colin. Fair enough. Cool. Thank you for getting in touch. Okay, so just in terms of an overview for me this week, the reason I kind of touch on this is that actually because I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I'm going on my own journey, and actually, I at the moment it's just me, that for me, sharing the honest kind of journey of where I'm at and how I've developed just over the past year, kind of since COVID, that previously a year ago this didn't exist and I was doing it from my spare bedroom. Then in November you would have seen me move to a proper office which had windows and stuff, which was actually upstairs. And then it was about a month ago that I moved here, where I've really invested in a lot more stuff. And the idea was it was a way to invest in myself and the business to actually help educate more. And actually I knew that live streaming was going to be a really big thing moving forward. So I put a lot of money into new cameras, and you might have noticed that the camera is on something called a moving slider, which just makes it a little bit more interesting. The office space itself, you've got a nice flat screen here. And what I just wanted to do was do the best I could to invest in the user experience, to actually just help people. The whole point of the course is that you can dip in and dip out as much as you want. It works kind of around you. But actually, that's a good thing, because what we then do is that I want you to be working on your business. I don't want you to be sat in a classroom if you don't need to be. But then actually, if you want to pick my brains or learn a bit more about sales, marketing, strategy, whichever, you can do at a time that suits you. So that's the whole point of this. But then actually, I'm going to jump on to my last one. But that's why, as a seamless kind of segue, it's important to invest in yourself and your business. That when you first kind of start out in business, it's very easy to conserve the pennies, and you're doing everything you can to try and win customers. And being honest, the best way to do that is to have a clearly defined offer, which is simple, that people kind of understand it. But then actually just pick up the phone, get in touch with people that know you or know who you are, and actually just ask, is there anything I can do to help you? And you want to do that to a point where your business is cash generative, it's doing all the right things. And actually, for me, that probably took 6 months from when I first set up. That yes, I was making money, but not enough that I was making enough money to then reinvest. But the one thing that's really important for businesses of all sizes to do is that if you ever stay still and you just stick with what you've got and then just keep doing the same of everything, you're not actually looking to iterate your brand or your service offer or your lead times or anything, your competitors will catch up, and at some point they might kind of overtake you. I don't know why it's going to put LinkedIn user. For some reason I can't see everyone's names today. Whilst I'm presenting, I won't try and fix it, but please work with me if you just kind of drop your name in. But I apologize if I kind of don't shout people out by name. But it is what it is. This is also the beauty of actually live streams, that it would be foolish for me to try and fix it now, but it is what it is. But anyway, what I was trying to say is that it's important for you to kind of grow your business. But part of the reason why with the roadmap, and it's the reason it's called the actual Roadmap MBA, is that yes, it's all about business education, but I want you to be able to plan where it is you want to get to. So for me, being completely honest, at some point I would love to speak on big stages and have people all around the world use the course and actually get value from it. That's what's really kind of important to me. And then I've also got a big buy one, gift one initiative. So anyone can register for a free course if they go to guest list at roadmapmba.com. And the whole thinking behind that was actually that I want people to be able to, I don't believe that there should be any barriers to education which holds people back. And I think far too often universities and different places, they do great courses, but if they're 16, 20, 100 grand to go on, that's very prohibitive to a lot of people. And then likewise, if you're a working parent or whatever your kind of circumstances, you often can't commit the time. So the whole point of what I wanted to do was make business education accessible, and a live stream is one way to do that. But actually, the fact that you're seeing this now is proof that I also believe in investing in myself. And actually, I think you should too. And it doesn't matter if you're a copywriter, a graphic designer, you've got a manufacturing business, whichever. Always be looking at actually how can we improve, how can we kind of move forward. And it's really worth kind of the money if you can afford to. So that was the first one. About investing in yourself. One of the things that I also did this week is I had some new photos taken. There's a photographer called Chris Owens who's based in the northeast of England. He does the Northeast Times, if anyone knows it. Really great guy, very, very good photographer. And Chris was kind enough to take my picture on Wednesday. And yes, it was an investment to kind of do. But one of the most important things that anyone can do in business or your career, I'll be honest, is actually get good photos done. Because what that does, on LinkedIn, but actually in all your social medias, that's probably what people see you as most of the time, especially with COVID when we're not seeing people face to face. A good personal brand and good public image that portrays what you want it to portray, but likewise, it's not just a selfie from your holiday, it's more professional. It will help you. It's not essential, but it's the kind of thing that it's worth doing, and I did this week. But actually, yeah, so, I'd love to know actually in the comments, where have people commented, sorry, I'm trying to read the comments at the same time. Multitasking is difficult. But when have you invested in yourself in the past, and what have you found it's good? And back to the comment about, is this in 4K? No, I actually choose to stream in 1080p. And although, I'll get very techie for a second, it's the whole beauty of the interactive live stream. So I have here, it's 180 megabytes a second upload and download speed, which is really, really fast. Depending on the bandwidth that you have, in theory, you can broadcast at different levels. So with the cameras and stuff I've got, I could actually broadcast this in 4K, but the amount of data that eats up is massive. But what I've found is that I've tried running the streams in the past actually at higher bit rates, and it's getting very techy now, than what I do now. So at the moment I've run this at 4 megabytes a second, or maybe 4.5, which is 1080p, it's good enough. And the reason is that LinkedIn and the other platforms can't always handle the higher bit rates. So although I might output a really good stream, it can get more choppy if you go to 4K or really higher resolutions or whichever. So I purposely stick with this, that to be honest, it's good enough. I'm not that good looking that you want to see my face in 4K anyway. And then likewise, a lot of people also look at this on their phones. So I thought 1080p is good enough, but it is something that I will kind of keep in mind. But I always appreciate the shouts about the different comments. And the other thing as well, I knew when I wanted to do these that I always kind of throw my heart and soul into everything that I try and do. And it was, what is the best way could I create the experience of an interactive thing? So obviously behind the camera, I've now got a big 40-inch monitor with all the comments and stuff on. But it was all the little touches like the camera slider, just to make it a little bit interesting. I just didn't want to be standard. But for me, that was something as a way to almost create a bit of a USP. So again, I like talking about these things purely because it might be interesting to you and whatever you do when you're looking to stand out in the market. LinkedIn Live is a great thing to do if you're allowed to kind of do it. But actually, it's make sure that whatever content you put out, the most important thing is actually the content. But if you can do it in good quality and stuff as well, it will hopefully, react well for you. Okay, my coffee is starting to go cold, but it's okay. So it's 9:12. Thank you for all of the comments. Sorry, I'm just reading the comments. 8K output, YouTube. Very nice, very nice. Cool, so I'm gonna go onto the first question now, which was something that came up this week. And it was all to do with, how do you make decisions between different business options? So one of the things which comes up quite a lot is that and I've been there, most people have a job. I don't know what the percentage actually is for people that work for themselves, but most people work in some sort of employment. One of the things which has actually become more and more prevalent in the past maybe 10 years, when I guess we started to have The Apprentice in the UK, but we also had, what do we have? We have Dragon's Den and different things. Entrepreneurship kind of became cool at some point, and that was true kind of around the world. But actually a lot of people have some sort of burning desire to maybe consider starting a business or launching a product or whichever. And I think it's a great option, because what it can do was that a lot of people are very creative and they want to feel like fulfillment and actually that they're building something. And the truth is, in most jobs, that doesn't always happen. You can be working away, but almost if you feel like you're just working for someone else and you're not really achieving anything, that it doesn't always motivate you to get out of bed every day. So there's a lot of people who do consider kind of starting their own business. But the truth is as well, it's probably a lot harder than a lot of people think. The basics of which to do well is what I cover in the roadmap. And you can learn it, and that's the whole point of the course. But it's still your gut feel on if you should do it, what option should you take, and different options. So what I'm going to draw out is 3 different options that someone I spoke to this week had. And then they were trying to decide what do they do, which options do they chase. So the first one for a lot of people is a job. Then we had option 1, and then option 2. So I'm just going to pick 2 random options for the idea, and then the idea is that obviously you apply it to yourself. So the job could be, to be honest, it can be whatever you want. And I'm going to say option 1 is to invest in property. This is something that a lot of people want to do now, and there's lots of different ways you can do it, but I'm going to do. And then the other one, I'm just going to call it product. When I say product, it could be coffee, it could be handbags, it could be business courses, it could be anything, but I'm talking about physical goods, not services. So I'm going to call that product. Okay, so next, the things that you always have to consider when you're looking at what do you do, and actually do you start a business, and then if so, which business do you start? Because that can also be part of the problem. There's 3 main things that I think you want to look at. First one is risk. Then there's opportunity size. And then last but not least, is competition. So I'm going to start with the job first, and I'm hopefully going to try and explain why I think each of these is important. And the idea is that when talking it through, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comment. But it's that kind of thing of the whole point of this is just to spark that idea of, I didn't think of that. So in terms of a job, actually, I'm just going to switch back to this pen. So in terms of taking a job, someone else is actually taking the risk for you. As in, you probably work for a business that you're not kind of founding yourself. And then worst case, if it doesn't work out, you can always get another job. So I think risk with taking a job is low. Opportunity size, and this is in terms of market size, but likewise, what potential benefit could you get from it? By its very nature, because you're working for someone else, probably in someone else's machine, it's quite low. So I can't imagine, although you do still get some very well-paid jobs, there's not a huge amount of them. So actually, I'd also say that the opportunity size is low. I'm going to use pound coin signs as I kind of go across. But then competition, and when I say competition, yes, I guess there is competition for the same jobs, which is true. But I'm going to talk about actually just, I still think it's a hell of a lot easier to get a job and work. I think 20, 30 times easier than it is to do it yourself. So I'm not going to say that competition for jobs is also low. I know that at the moment there is actually a very in-demand job market, actually, which is great. There's a lot of people in work at the moment, even post-COVID. But in the purely terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of deciding what to do, a job is kind of a low risk, low reward angle. And actually, if it doesn't work out, you haven't lost anything. You can just get another job. Next, I'm going to jump into property. And then the idea is that it doesn't matter if it's property or actually something else. It's just the idea to think about the topic, if that makes sense. But in terms of property, risk, because you probably have to put a lot of money down for deposits and different stuff, I'd actually say the risk is quite high. But then there's also other things as well. Like, for instance, I read a book recently and it talked about how a property entrepreneur, they bought a plot of land, they invested a lot of money into it, and they found something hidden underground, which basically just torpedoed the whole project. But actually, take that as it is, I'm going to say the risk actually is quite high. And that's purely because of, you might have to put your life savings or actually remortgage your house to do it. The opportunity size is also very high. So for instance, properties cost a lot of money, but likewise, they all can sell for a lot of money. And likewise, a lot of people do renovations. So they might buy a property, do it up and then sell it, in which case they could make 20, 30 grand in a few months, which is a lot better than you would ever get selling coffee, etc. So I'm also going to say opportunity size is £3 notes, coin things, just because there's a big opportunity there. Competition is interesting for this, purely because there are actually a lot of people who do property development. And if you Google it online or you go onto Instagram and stuff, you'll see lots of people, and I know lots of people that actually do it. So competition is relatively high, but actually there's a huge market out there. As in we have in the UK 70, 80 million people. So actually I'm going to say medium on this one. So what you're then looking at is actually, if you wanted to go into property, for one, do you have the expertise to do it? Or if you don't, do you have the ability to learn the expertise to do it? Can you afford to take the risk? Because likewise, if you had a few million quid in the bank that actually you could invest $500,000 without really mattering if you lose it or not, that might, sway the risk. And then actually it's not hugely kind of competitive just because the market is so big and you can go direct to customer. In terms of launching the product business, I actually think that this is one of the areas that a lot of people underestimate how difficult it is. So in terms of risk, it depends what you want to sell. I'm going to say actually fashion stuff. So I'm going to say handbags just as a prime example. What is the risk? So actually the risk would be, you would have to buy stock, which is obviously massively cost intensive, because if you go to a manufacturer and actually say, look, I've got this new design of handbag, I need 1,000, they'll tell you about minimum order quantities, and you might have to put down £20,000 and probably wait 6 months at least. And that's before you even start to advertise the product, market the product, get any retail space, etc. So actually the risk is also pretty high. But the other thing that I wanted to kind of point out is that for any product-based business, within reason, there's also a supply chain risk. So you might have a business which might rely on a particular supplier in Italy that does your stuff, and that might be a brilliant business. But if they go out of business, or they go bust, or they change their decision making, or they just don't want to work with you, or whichever, your whole business that you've spent years kind of building could be dead in the water. And a lot of people don't think about supply chain risk. But then the other side to it as well is that you'll always get squeezed on margin. So the more layers that you have in your supply chain in terms of raw material through to actually selling it to a customer, the more difficult a business it's going to be, because there's more areas that you're going to get squeezed. But actually, this is often more difficult than you might think. Opportunity size, again, I'm going to pick handbags. Yes, I guess you've got a global market that if you are Fendi or Hermes or Mulberry or whoever, yeah, there's a big market out there. So I'm going to go high again on that one. But again, the actual competition is extremely high, because you're also going up against people with very, very, very deep pockets, established supply chains, marketing campaigns, everything. That if you actually wanted to go into a product-based business and go head-to-head against something which is well established, you have to make sure that you have a tip-top product, which ideally you own the intellectual property on, that nobody else can copy. It has to be uniquely yours. Then actually that's going to reduce your risk, but always be conscious of supply chain. Part of the option with property or any business, if you can go direct to consumer, so you don't have to go via a retailer or via anyone else, it's really valuable to be able to kind of do that. Or you can just get a job. And it's these kind of things that when you're trying to weigh up different options about starting a new business and trying to decide what to do, people often forget about supply chain. And then the big thing again on competition is that you've got to ask yourself, and you've got to also be honest, why do you think you can do whatever it is better than anyone else in the world? And it rarely does, and it should be anyone else in the world, unless you want to start like a local bakery. Purely because with the internet now and live streaming and different things, you have to be 100% confident in your offer. That for me, I solve problems very quickly, but I also understand small businesses and the challenges they face. And I've kind of been through that career that I spotted a gap that nobody had ever actually brought that together in a business education format, but then kind of thought through, how do we make it accessible? How do we make it easy? How do we make it accessible for people that don't like to read? And really trying to think it through. So for me with the Roadmap MBA, this is a 10-year thing that I'm going to try and keep building on. But I genuinely do think that I can do it better than anyone else. That's why I've kind of jumped into it head first. But you should do the same. You want to have complete kind of confidence in what you do, why it's important, and then also, how you can kind of conquer the world doing it. Cool. I'm just going to catch up on some of the comments. Do I freelance? Yes, I do. I do consultancy, which is the same thing. So yes, companies basically hire me to do stuff. And then, being honest, as part of my kind of business model, is that if you go on my website under Steve or consultancy at the top, so it's roadmapmba.com, I actually drew out how, for me, actually, I'll draw it out just because you're on the stream at the moment. So when I started out in business myself, everyone has to know how they're going to make money, but it's really important as well to be able to communicate it. So in terms of money over time, freelancers basically sell their time for money. So people hire them to do stuff. So that is probably what you class as consultancy. A lot of people set up and they just do that, and they're more than happy to just do that. But part of the issue up for me was that you never really make ground. So for instance, you might have 5 customers and they might pay you £1,000 a month each, which is great and you're earning your money. But then if any of them decides, actually, we don't need you anymore, okay, you can find another customer, but you can't really earn more than that. So I wanted, and I was very upfront from the start, was to basically have 2 extra additional revenue streams. The first one was all about investing. So what I do and what people hire me for is that the business skills to help grow companies, because I'm actually quite good at that, was that actually it's taking kind of sweat equity or whichever in businesses that can keep growing whilst I'm doing other things. But actually the consultancy allows me to invest in cameras, live streams, studios, whichever, and the roadmap and my own stock, that this actually enables me to do my other things. And then the other one is in terms of business education, that with the Roadmap MBA, so basically when customers order, they get this pack which gets shipped out around the world. And we've got customers in USA, Nigeria, Latvia, Amsterdam, the UK. And it's how that is my scalable business model, that it's given business education and giving people access to stuff that is, well, cheaper than a lot of other people kind of do. Hopefully better in terms of the interactivity, but that is my scalable business model that this unlocks. But the other important thing, just to do with what I do, the fact that people actually hire me to do stuff and hire me to sell on their behalf, means that all of the skills that I talk about, I practice every single day, that actually I'm quite good at them. So almost you're working with someone that's a practitioner that isn't just teaching you theory from a textbook. I actually do it every day. And as soon as I finish these calls, I jump back on client stuff. And that again, for me, is part of my kind of USP, is that this is what I actually do. So hopefully, that might have answered your question. I'm just going to read through. Employ people replication. That's a good point. So a lot of businesses that do what I do, you can employ different people to grow the baseline. There's two reasons why I don't. One is that you can never guarantee for what I do. It's hard to replicate in terms of it's all about your brain power to understand problems, use your reference points from past jobs to then solve problems. That I can't trust how good other people are going to be to do that. So therefore, I don't want to place the risk to take on a client who buys into what we're trying to do and they don't get the service because I can't control what someone else says or does outside the office. But you could train them up, you could just hire better people, which is true. But as part of my own roadmap and what I'm looking to do, the dream is for the business course, and actually the idea that one day I can sit on a beach and sit in Cyprus or sit in America or travel or do all these great things and do the live streams and do the fun stuff, but actually work one day a week. And that's part of the dream of being able to control my own destiny, to build the business that I want, not just a bigger business. Does that make sense? And so just through having a conscious awareness of what I'm trying to build is why I'll probably, never say never, and I record these as well, I'll probably never employ someone just because I want the freedom to be able to adapt and pivot and stuff and grow the scalable side of the business, rather than just do more marketing support or strategy support, whatever. But no, I genuinely appreciate the heads up on the questions. It's all really, really good stuff. I always joke as well about how dry your throat goes when you talk for 29 minutes straight. It's quite funny, but it's all really I genuinely appreciate the comments, because this is the whole beauty of the interactive live stream. That likewise, if there's anything that you want to know or ask me, send it in and I'll kind of do my best to answer it now. And then last but not least, So one of the big things, and you see this all the time, and I think you see it because it's not sexy, is that when you're looking to grow a business, people always say, it's all about sales, it's all about marketing and getting the word out there, getting more customers. And that's only partly true, and I'm going to try and explain why. Business. Okay. So if you're going to look to grow a business, generally there's two different sides to it. You have sales, which is what most people focus on, in that you want to sell more, which makes sense if you have a business that sells marker pens. If you currently sell 1 million units a year, you sell 2 million units a year, happy days, you make more money. But it depends on the dynamics of where you work. So my background is largely offshore energy, oil and gas, renewables, that kind of thing. But one of the big things and the big selling points for clients is actually to do with efficiency, making sure there's no mistakes, so the quality is really, really good, but also delivery time, and I'll explain why. I'm going to put lead time. So for instance, if you have a factory that produces parts, the more efficient you can get and the more parts you can make per hour, doesn't sound sexy, but what it enables you to do is within a day or a week or a month, produce 20% more, 30% more, etc., or produce them faster. And then likewise, with my background to do with basically offshore energy, where everything is very kind of high risk, that you don't want to get it wrong, and people really pay a premium to make sure that something is going to be, as good as it can be. What these are doing is actually enabling you to give you your USP. I'm just going to switch pens again. So if you're very efficient, you've got very good quality, and because you can be more efficient, you have shorter lead times, they develop into your USP, which then you can use to sell more. Because if the buying driver for the customer isn't price, but actually they need this piece of equipment in 10 weeks, and your competitors can only do it in 14 weeks, you're more likely to win the job, therefore you're going to increase sales. But actually what you're also doing is that you're making and implementing a better strategy to grow the business, which will then help you sell more, which then helps you invest more in the business and get much better. And I think most businesses, from marketing companies all the way through to, I guess, recruitment or whichever, people always focus on how do we sell more, how do we bring in more customers? But at the same time, you also need to be looking at your operations. How do you get slicker, faster, more efficient, get your lead times down, reduce the amount of stock inventory that you have to hold, which therefore reduces your cash flow, which means you can invest more in different stuff. Most people don't talk about the operations side of it. And again, it's not very sexy, but that's part of, say, because I work in and I help run these companies, when you've got a viewpoint on that kind of thing, it's really important. As a prime example, because I like to break this back down to real world stuff for freelancers and people that are first starting out, because they might think, well, you know what, I don't have a factory, I don't have stock, why do I need that? Even with the business course, when I first started out, if I got an order for 5 packs, I would build up the box, build each pack, ship them out one at a time. And what I realized, it was a very inefficient use of time. But then likewise, because I'm busy doing my day job, I can't always decide, or I might not have time to build that in time to then get to, the post office in time to send it to the customer. So one of the things I did for my own operations is that I now have a pile of 300 packs right next to me, already made up, done, so that if an order comes in, I can actually print out the address and get it in the post within 20 minutes. And my point is that even as a sole trader, as a single person, there are still lots of things that you can do to improve your efficiencies, to actually just get better at what you do. And then the other one, which just relates to this, and I purposely picked myself just because I can talk about it and it might, resonate with some people, is that part of the reason I also wanted my own office is that I could have the lights, the camera equipment, everything set up all the time, so that over time, as these kind of increase in frequency and hopefully maybe in different languages and different things, I don't have to set them up from scratch. And what that does, that saves me hours a week, which I can then sell either more consultant hours or put more time into the roadmap, but actually it's a conscious awareness of both sales and operations, and I believe that you should kind of do the same. Connect on LinkedIn after a chat, please. I absolutely will, but I can't see. It could be just when I log into the LinkedIn website, I'll be able to see who you are. But if you send me a friend request, I'll definitely kind of reach out to you. But if you don't, I might not know who you are, but that's not on purpose. Cool. I'm just reading through all the other comments. So basically what are we on? So on 9:35, I do actually love as well. It's a slightly more high risk way, but when people comment on the chat, you've probably seen, they come up on the screen, and that was part of the interactivity to show that I actually do listen to you, etc. And it's also quite funny because I use a company called, I use a streaming platform called OBS, but actually I use something called restream.io to send it to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, etc., LinkedIn all at the same time. And I actually started to stream to Twitch because the thinking was, there's a lot of gamers who either into crypto, into investing, or want to start their own business. So I thought it might be quite interesting to kind of do that extra angle. But then the comments which they send you back aren't necessarily great for public consumption, because gamers, and teenage kids and stuff will swear and say, what the hell's this, and etc. That I actually stopped streaming to Twitch for that reason, although the idea was there. But no, cool. So no, thank you all for your time. What are we on, 9:36? So yeah, so it's Friday. I genuinely hope that you have a wonderful weekend. After I finish this, I then get the wonder to kind of catch up on my client work and do all that kind of thing. But then likewise, if you ever have any questions yourself, please genuinely, you got the questions at roadmapmba.com, which is down here. But you've got the website, which is roadmapmba.com. Check it out. Feel free to join any of our kind of classroom sessions, at least for probably until October. They're all kind of completely free for you to join and just check it out. On Tuesday, we're going to be talking about personal branding, which, although that can sound a bit woolly, it's all about your appearance, your behavior, how you communicate, your presence on digital, and actually how you get across everything about who you are, what you do, hopefully to a quality where people like it, they trust it, that they're then more likely to either hire you for a job or hire you for your business or career as well. So it's not just doing it for the sake of it or doing it to get followers. I try and always relate it back to real world kind of business stuff. And then likewise, throughout the rest of the course, I also then go on to talk about how that investment in your brand and understanding your mission and your aims and goals can actually help you in your promotion, but actually help you convert more customers and actually do all of that kind of stuff as well. Cool, so I'm going to call it quits there at 9:37. I genuinely appreciate everyone's time. I will catch everyone after this, which is cool. And yeah, thank you for your time and have a wonderful Friday and weekend. And please feel free to reach out if I can ever do anything to help. All right, cheers guys. Have a nice day.